heated debates regarding St. George's Cross and whether it is racist and divisive. Also discussing prioritizing inclusivity and diversity in the community and keeping existing cultural norms. I'm joined by Paul Embery, trade unionist and writer. Welcome to Rick's Europe.
Thank you for having me.
So recent polls have indicated a significant portion of Labour voters viewing the St. George's Cross as racist and divisive. How divided is the country in this matter, and what are the public's reactions?
Well, I think that the vast majority of people in this country don't regard the St. George's flag as racist and divisive. But there are a number of people, predominantly on the left of politics, and I'm from the left, but these people, often quite radically progressive in their views, see any kind of expression of national sentiment as racist and divisive and xenophobic and bigoted and exclusionary. And for most people, actually, that isn't the case. For many people, they see it as a unifying symbol. The sense of being part of a nation can bring people together. And actually, I've argued that is probably the best and most democratic form of government at its highest level, the nation state. Once you go beyond the nation state, then that, what you might call the elasticity of democracy, can stretch to breaking point. So actually, I think that the majority of people in Britain reject any suggestion that the St. George's flag or any expression of national sentiment is divisive. And I think the problem, and you touched on the views of Labour Party voters, this really goes to the heart of what has been the problem for the Labour Party over recent years in Britain, that it is seen quite often, and the left generally in Britain is seen as being unpatriotic, is seen as having very much a kind of cosmopolitan liberal mindset, which sneers really at the sense of patriotism that is felt by many people in this country, especially working class people, the people who the Labour Party was created to represent in the first place. And it's no coincidence that as that kind of mindset has developed in the Labour Party, it means that many working class people stop voting for it. And it's clear that parts of the Labour Party, quite large parts, still haven't got that message.
So the debate is ongoing, and it's still controversial to paint your face with the flag and these sorts of things in celebration situations, of course.
In some people's minds, it's controversial. Some people think, it's wrong and divisive to display the Union Jack. I remember when Sir Keir Starmer took over as the leader of the Labour Party, and he gave a speech standing in front of the Union Jack. And he received quite heavy criticism from some people within the Labour Party and the wider Labour movement, who said that he was embracing the far right and, mimicking the tactics of the far right. And I mean, it shows really, I think, how far removed from reality some of those people are, because the idea that it should be seen as far right or unacceptable for the leader of a major political party, in this case the opposition party, to give a speech or a statement in front of the national flag is crazy. And I think if you went to most countries on the continent of Europe, that probably wouldn't be controversial at all. But there were many people who attacked him for doing so, and I think that shows the trajectory of the Labour Party in terms of some of the ideas that it's embraced in recent years, the sort of ideas that are just far removed from the basic ideas of ordinary voters.
And I read that I read in your Substack about keeping cultural traditions versus the new practices. In your opinion, what are the potential consequences if prioritizing inclusivity and diversity? Do you see that there would be a lack of consideration of existing cultural norms? And is this sort of the sentiment of people?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I think the more that we have preached inclusivity in our country, the more divided actually we have become. And I think that what we've done, certainly the influences within our society, people who run our politics, people who run our institutions, in many cases, they have preached this kind of multicultural agenda, but in such a way where it promotes separateness and difference between people. Instead of trying to bring people together, instead of trying to develop common cultural bonds between people, I think the leaders of our society have tried to, even if it wasn't their intention, but they've tried to say that separateness and difference is such a good thing, that the effect has been to make society, I think, more fragmented and more atomized. And I think for many of our, what you might call our traditional working class communities, they see a contradiction as well, because they are constantly told that they should celebrate other cultures, that they should embrace other cultures. But quite often, when they try to celebrate their own culture or promote their own culture, they're accused of being exclusionary, and they're accused of being hostile to other cultures, and bigoted and worse. And they can't quite understand, with good reason, they can't quite understand why it is that many people within, if you like, our liberal progressive class that exercises so much cultural influence within our society are so quick to promote other cultures, at the same time as so keen to trash our own culture and history, if you like. And there are, it's undeniable that there are many towns and communities in Britain today where people do live parallel existences, and I don't say we're on the verge of a civil war or any of that sort of stuff. I'm not suggesting that these communities are powder keg communities waiting to explode, but I am suggesting that there is just a reluctance among different communities to engage, a feeling among communities that have arrived here through immigration, that there's no real need, no real incentive to assimilate, to integrate into, if you like, the dominant culture. And no one within our politics really has tried any way at all to try to integrate people, to try to assimilate people, to say to communities, look, we need to foster common cultural bonds between people. And because we've been terrible at that, it has resulted in these atomized and fragmented communities where people are not necessarily hostile to each other on a day-to-day basis, but just don't really interact with each other. And that, I think, causes resentment, and it causes, in many cases, misunderstandings between communities. And it's something that I think we've got very badly wrong in this country, but it's something that very few people at the top of our politics are ever prepared to admit having got wrong.
Thank you, Paul Embery, trade unionist and writer.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Rick's Europe.